The state's dream of exploring its large deposit of bitumen for commercial use is drawing closer to reality.
According to the Ministry of Mines and Steel Development, Nigeria has the second largest deposit of bitumen in the world, spanning approximately 120 kilometers. The estimated probable reserves of bitumen in Ondo State is 16 billion barrels.
$17 trillion. Let that number sink in. It's the estimated value of the treasure buried just beneath the red soil of Ondo State, home to the second largest bitumen deposit on the planet. This isn't just a figure. It's a paradigm-shifting sum, a fortune so vast it could wipe out Nigeria's entire foreign debt of approximately $46 billion, not just once, but hundreds of times over. It's enough money to fundamentally rewrite the story of the nation, to launch a new era of prosperity that could touch every citizen. But before the confetti cannons are loaded, we must pause. Nigerians have seen this movie before, and it often ends in tragedy. We've danced this dance with crude oil, a ballet of resource wealth that led to devastating spills in the Niger Delta. Billions of dollars vanishing into ghost projects and foreign bank accounts. And grand promises that evaporated faster than petrol on hot tarmac. So the $17 trillion question hangs heavy in the air. Is this black gold our ticket to national greatness, or is it just another reel in the resource curse movie we've been stuck watching on a loop since 1958? Let's dare to dream for a moment. Picture a future Nigeria, transformed by this newfound wealth. Imagine cruising down a Lagos-Calabar coastal highway. An 8-lane ribbon of asphalt, so impossibly smooth, it feels like the road is flirting with your tires. That pristine surface isn't imported. It's made from bitumen, mined and refined just 30 kilometers away in a state-of-the-art facility in Ondo. This single industry has become an engine of progress, directly and indirectly creating over 200,000 jobs. These aren't just temporary labor gigs. These are careers for chemical engineers, geologists, logistics managers, skilled technicians, and an entire ecosystem of support staff who were once part of the unemployment statistics. These are people who have transitioned from queuing for government stipends to building their own homes and paying taxes that fuel the nation. The economic ripple effects are staggering. The country now earns 35 billion naira in annual export revenue from its bitumen products and saves another 20 billion naira by no longer needing to import asphalt. Suddenly, the national budget doesn't look like a crime scene stitched together with debt and deficits. There's real, sustainable income. This dream is already attracting global attention. European investors have tentatively signed a $1 billion memorandum of understanding. And a national bitumen commission is on the verge of being empowered for the first time in a generation. Ondo, once the quiet kid at the back of the class, has the potential to become the head boy, a beacon of industrialization for the entire country. This time, the story could genuinely be different, and the reason lies in a powerful combination of geography and global economics. Ondo's massive bitumen deposits aren't landlocked and difficult to access like much of the nation's oil. They are, metaphorically speaking, beachfront real estate. The close proximity to the coast allows for the development of a dedicated deep-sea port, a game-changing piece of infrastructure. This would enable colossal cargo ships to load up directly with refined bitumen products and sail straight to international markets, completely bypassing the legendary gridlock and logistical bottlenecks of Lagos. This is a luxury that oil-rich inland states never had, a critical advantage that lowers transportation costs and increases efficiency. Furthermore, the global appetite for blacktop is growing relentlessly. Every developing nation is paving new roads, and every megacity from Houston to Mumbai needs bitumen for roofing and infrastructure maintenance. With the world's second largest reserve, Nigeria wouldn't be a price taker. it could be a price setter. This unique combination of prime geographical location plus immense global demand equals unprecedented leverage. For once, Nigeria could walk into the global marketplace holding a royal flush, a hand it has rarely, if ever, held before. But here, the ghosts of the past emerge, whispering cautionary tales. We cannot ignore the brutal irony that Nigeria is already swimming in crude oil wealth, a resource that has generated hundreds of billions of dollars. Yet the nation is home to 15% of the world's poorest people. Projections for 2024 suggested that nearly half of all Nigerians live in poverty. International energy giants like Shell drilled, spilled, and occasionally paid fines that amounted to little more than a rounding error on their quarterly profits, a cost of doing business cheaper than a one-way business class ticket to London. The rivers of the Niger Delta, once teeming with life, were turned into shimmering, toxic mirrors of crude oil. An entire generation of children grew up tasting petroleum in their water and seeing their parents' livelihoods as fishermen dissolve into the slick. If a political and corporate culture of corruption was potent enough to kneecap the golden goose of oil, bitumen is simply another shin to kick. The potential for wealth is immense, but so is the potential for history to repeat its most painful lessons. This phenomenon has a name: the resource curse. It's the fancy academic term for a simple, heartbreaking pattern. Find treasure, stay poor. Look at our neighbors and peers. Ghana's vast gold reserves didn't stop the SETI's freefall. The Democratic Republic of Congo's cobalt, essential for our smartphones and electric cars, has bankrolled decades of conflict and violence, not hospitals and universities. Angola's offshore oil fields filled Swiss bank vaults for a tiny elite, while the majority of its citizens saw little benefit. The script is tragically familiar. A nation discovers a valuable natural resource and begins exporting it in its raw form. This influx of foreign currency causes the local currency to soar in value. While this sounds good, it makes all other exports, like agricultural products, suddenly too expensive for the world to buy. It also makes imported goods deceptively cheap. Local farmers can't sell their cocoa or cassava because foreign processed chocolate and starch are flooding the market. Local industries wither. The economy becomes dangerously dependent on a single commodity. And when the price of that commodity inevitably crashes, the entire nation is plunged into crisis. Economists call this Dutch disease. The people who live through it simply call it a curse, a rain that enriches a few while washing away the foundations of a nation's future. To understand how this happens, we must examine corruption's toolkit, because the methods are depressingly consistent. Bitumen itself is a solid rock, but the contracts that govern its extraction are a porous sponge designed to soak up public funds. The old tricks will be deployed with renewed vigor. Unmarked envelopes passed to officials to secure exploration licenses. Multi-billion naira kickbacks for roads that will never be built, and environmental impact assessments written in Comic Sans and approved without a single site visit. The fate of Ondo's $17 trillion treasure could rest on the integrity of one minister with a rubber stamp. That single signature can either crown the state as the Dubai of West Africa or sentence its communities to the desolation of Sapelo. The proposed Bitumen Commission sounds promising, a necessary step towards oversight. But we know from bitter experience that paper laws don't bite. Without a framework built on transparent open bidding for all contracts, real-time public data on revenues and disbursements, and the genuine threat of jail time for offenders, that 17 trillion headline will remain what it is today: spicy, tantalizing gossip. Ultimately, The success or failure of this venture hinges on the community equation. Walk into the town of Adbabo today, the epicenter of the bitumen deposits, and you can already hear two distinct sound tracks playing simultaneously. The first is a symphony of hope, the dream of a brand new primary school with a roof made from locally sourced bitumen sheets, of a clinic that can save a child's life, of jobs that bring dignity. The second is a drumbeat of dread, the kind it rises when rumors spread that a sacred grove is next on the chopping block for an open pit mine. Science backs up these fears, flagging the severe environmental risks. The extraction process can lead to acid mine drainage, where toxic heavy metals leach into the groundwater, poisoning wells and rivers. It can release clouds of dust that scar lungs and cause respiratory illness. And there's the ever-present danger of sludge and tailings ponds, toxic byproducts that can swallow entire farms. If the royalties from this black rock are jet set straight to Abuja, leaving the host communities with nothing but polluted water and broken promises, the outcome is predictable. Protests, roadblocks, pipeline sabotage, and terrified investors sprinting for the nearest exit. The people of Ondo must be seen as the primary stakeholders, not as obstacles to be managed. There is, however, a clear blueprint for success, a proven path that another African nation has walked. Botswana was once one of the poorest countries on earth, until it discovered diamonds. But instead of a fire sale, its leaders made a series of brilliant, strategic decisions. They negotiated their partnership with the mining giant De Beers in the full light of day, ensuring the nation received a fair share of the profits. They didn't spend the windfall immediately. Instead, they stashed a significant portion of the cash in a sovereign wealth fund, the Pula Fund, to protect it from political whims and save for future generations. The rest was systematically poured into building world-class clinics, schools, and infrastructure. Today, Botswana's GDP per capita rivals that of some European nations. The moral of the story is simple but profound. Build the system first, then count the money. Nigeria has the chance to copy-paste this model, creating a Bitumen for Development Fund with ironclad rules. This leads us to 5 non-negotiable principles that must be the foundation of Nigeria's bitumen strategy. First, pass the Bitumen Commission Bill, but ensure it has real teeth. Provisions for fully open data, robust whistleblower protections, and truly independent auditors who answer to the public, not to politicians. Second, we must refine the bitumen here in Nigeria. The era of shipping our raw materials abroad only to buy back the finished products, like selling crude tar and buying imported asphalt as if it's designer gear, must end. We must capture the full value of the resource within our borders. Third, a mandatory slice of every single dollar earned from bitumen exports must be siphoned into a sovereign wealth fund, managed by professional economists and nerds, not by political godfathers and their cronies. Fourth, demand environmental bonds from every company that gets a license. This means they pay a massive security deposit up front, which they only get back if the land they mined is fully reclaimed and smiles again after they leave. And fifth, and most crucially, cut the host communities in directly. Royalty should be paid into community-managed trusts with public dashboards, not lost in vague promises about trickle-down. Development that never materializes. These 5 principles must be clear, simple, and ruthlessly enforced, or we should forget the whole thing and leave the bitumen in the ground. If we get this right, what does success look like? Fast forward to 2035. An engineer, born and raised in Akure, is now the director of the world's first carbon-neutral bitumen plant, selling premium green asphalt to environmentally conscious nations in Europe at a significant profit. Next door to the plant, sits a world-renowned research institute funded entirely by bitumen royalties that trains Africa's brightest scientists to invent the next generation of smart, recyclable road materials. Unemployment in Ondo State has become a rounding error in the national statistics. The president of Nigeria visits not to cut another awkward ribbon for a hollow project, but to personally hand graduation certificates to 5,000 new technicians who are about to fan out across West Africa to lead the region's infrastructure boom. This future is not a fantasy. It is entirely achievable. The only resource required to build it is one we already have in spades, though it is often buried deeper than any mineral: political courage. The clock is ticking, loudly, right now, in quiet, air-conditioned offices in Abuja, London, and Beijing. Contracts are being drafted and rigs are preparing to drill. A signature on a piece of paper today will decide whether that $17 trillion becomes a cornerstone of Nigerian prosperity or another sad footnote in our history of squandered opportunities. Experts and insiders believe Nigerians have a window of perhaps 18 months before the first commercial barrels are extracted and shipped. After that, momentum, whether for good or for bad, will create its own powerful, almost unstoppable current. The direction we choose in these next few months will likely determine the nation's trajectory for the next 50 years. This is where you come in. If you are a Nigerian, this is the time to make your voice heard. Share this information with the loudest, most influential public official you know. Tag them on social media until your thumbs hurt. Demand transparency and accountability. If you are an investor looking at this opportunity, your challenge is to ask the hard questions in the boardrooms you fund. How will you publish your contracts? What is your plan for environmental remediation? How will you share your soil and water data with the public? Your capital can be a force for good or for exploitation. The choice is yours. And if you are simply a curious global citizen, comment below. What is the very first thing you would do if you were put in charge of Nigeria's Bitumen Commission? The best, most practical ideas will be pinned and shouted out. Smash that subscribe button, because this is only the beginning of the story. We will be stalking every disbursement, tracking every contract, and scrutinizing every liter of bitumen that comes out of the ground. We will follow this story until we know for certain whether Nigeria has finally broken its resource curse or is simply penning another chapter in a long, familiar tragedy. All the raw data, the sources, the bills, the maps is linked below. Free, no gatekeeping. Information is power. 42 billion barrels of bitumen are lounging beneath Ondo's soil, a reservoir of potential wealth that most nations will never sniff in a lifetime. The world is already sold on Nigerian bitumen. Its quality is high and its location is strategic. The only remaining question is whether Nigeria is finally sold on the future of Nigerians. Will this black gold pave our way to a new era of prosperity, or will it just smear the same old, hot-holed road with a fresh coat of tar? History has its popcorn out, waiting to see what happens next. 200 million of us are watching too, not as spectators, but as the ultimate judges of the outcome.